Hey guys, tonight we're slipping quietly into a world most people only glimpse in footnotes or drama reenactments. Imagine yourself waking up before the sun, somewhere deep inside a palace where the air smells faintly of inked pine wood and yesterday's incense. The walls are paper thin, the rules are carved in stone, and everything you do, from how you braid your hair to how loudly you breathe, could either earn you favor or make you disappear from memory altogether. This is the 1400s, deep in the Joseon Dynasty of Korea. You're not a queen, not even a princess. You're a court lady, one of many, not royalty, but also not common. Somewhere in between, where the silk is beautiful but the hours are brutal, and your job is to serve, to survive, and sometimes, just sometimes, to shine. You probably won't survive this in real life, unless you're used to waking up at 4 a.m. to fold blankets without a wrinkle, memorize Confucian proverbs, and curtsy until your knees beg for mercy. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink awake before the first bird has even dared to sing. The world around you is still dark, bathed in the indigo haze of pre-dawn, where shadows are soft and everything feels like it's waiting. Your room is tiny, no more than a shared wooden floor covered with paper mats and a thin quilt that barely counts as warmth. The other court ladies stir beside you, quiet as ghosts. No one speaks yet. You all know better. The silence isn't just peaceful, it's practice. You sit up slowly, bones creaking a little from the wooden floor, and swing your legs beneath you. No yawns, no stretch. You're already being watched, not by anyone visible necessarily, but by the rules themselves. You feel them, heavy and ever-present. The first order of business? Washing, not a luxurious bubble bath. Mind you, a splash of water from a ceramic basin, so cold it bites. You kneel beside the shallow bowl, dip your hands, and brace yourself. The first rinse is like a slap from a frozen ghost. Your teeth clench, your skin tightens, and you remember, oh yeah, it's winter. Again. But you scrub anyway, methodically. Neck, arms, face. The wooden comb waiting nearby is worn down from daily use, carved with floral patterns that once looked elegant but now just look exhausted. You tug it through your hair, which is long, dark, and not allowed to do whatever it wants. It's twisted tightly and pinned into a bun, so firm it could pass as a helmet. One of the younger girls whispers a prayer under her breath. You can't tell if it's the Buddha, the household guardian spirit, or just the spirit of hot water she wishes existed. Either way, she's not wrong. Your uniform waits folded at the end of your mat, a simple inner geoggery, clean white linen, followed by a dull-colored chima. These aren't the bright ceremonial hanbok of festivals or portraits. They're work clothes, court-appropriate, yes. Glamorous? Not exactly, but the rules of layering are still in place. Undergarment first, inner robe, then the top layer. If you mess up the order, someone will notice. Someone always notices. By now, the sky is lightened just enough to reveal silhouettes of the buildings around you. The women's quarters sit within the inner palace walls, separated from the outside world by layers of stone, gates, and protocol. You're in the heart of the beast, and it's a beast that feeds on punctuality and perfect posture. A faint gong sounds somewhere beyond the walls. You stand. So does everyone else. One of the senior court ladies walks by, glancing at your posture, your hair, your collar alignment. She nods barely. It's a victory, but don't celebrate. You're not done yet. You follow the others through narrow corridors that smell faintly of charcoal and pine. The walls are made of wood and paper, delicate but efficient. Everything in the palace has that same balance of fragility and precision, kind of like you. As you move through the hallway, you hear whispers, footsteps, distant clinking, soft murmurs, and formal speech. The palace is waking, but not all at once. Some wings will stay silent for hours. Others are already bustling with stewards and eunuchs preparing for the day's endless rituals. You're somewhere in the middle, important enough to matter, low enough to be invisible when needed. Outside, the sky shifts again, gray-blue now, with streaks of pale gold near the horizon. The ginkgo trees in the courtyard shiver in the morning breeze, dropping a few fan-shaped leaves onto the stone path. You step over them carefully. No one wants to be the girl who tracks dirt onto the wrong threshold. A mainstream historical fact: court ladies during the Joseon Dynasty were assigned ranks based on seniority, merit, and their closeness to the queen. Your daily schedule wasn't just a suggestion. It was carved into a scroll somewhere, logged by title and time slot. Deviating from it wasn't being quirky. It was treason adjacent. You enter the communal washing area, where more bowls are laid out and a pot of steaming rice gruel simmers over a low fire nearby. Breakfast prep is underway, but you're not cooking. That's for the lowest ranks or the kitchen servants. Your job? To look composed while waiting. And you do. You fold your hands. You straighten your spine. You don't yawn. You don't twitch. You've been trained for this. A quirky tidbit. Some court ladies believe certain makeup powders made from crushed pearl or oyster shell could ward off bad dreams. So technically, you're wearing ghost-proof skincare right now. Not that it's helping with the dark circles under your eyes. You hear footsteps, fast ones. A younger girl comes rushing into the courtyard, breathless and red-cheeked. She overslept. Rookie mistake. A senior lady tuts and begins a quiet, scathing lecture that includes a phrase dishonor to the queen's mirror. You silently vow never to sleep past the second bell. Ever. Historians still argue whether court life was more empowering or imprisoning for women. On the one hand, some ladies became powerful advisors or even unofficial influencers in palace politics. On the other hand, many spent their lives without ever seeing their families again. It's a coin toss, really. Except the coin is 20 pounds of silk and obligation. You finish washing, straighten your robes, and prepare for the next stage of your morning, dressing in full court attire. And this is where it gets serious. Because you're not just putting on clothes. You're putting on identity. You enter the dressing chamber, or rather, a shared space cluttered with lacquered chests, folded silks, and the soft rustling of a dozen other women trying to wrangle their robes into compliance. No mirrors here, just memory, routine, and a quietly judgmental hierarchy of eyes. Today, you're expected to wear your formal layers, meaning at least 3 distinct pieces, and possibly 4 if someone important might glance vaguely in your direction. You reach for your main robe, a saffron-colored chima that's been pressed and repressed until it holds a faint whiff of pine smoke starch. Beneath it, the white inner geoghery hugs your frame like an apology. The top layer, navy embroidered with pale cranes, is the one that makes your arms ache when you lift them, but it's also the one that tells the world you belong here. Sort of. One of the older ladies helps you fasten the naraigi, a decorative tassel meant to hang from your waistband. It's said to ward off misfortune and attract blessings. Yours is shaped like a tiny gourd, carved from peach wood and dyed with crushed indigo. You don't know if it works, but you wear it anyway. In this place, you collect protections like candy. The hairstyle is next, and here's where things get dicey. Your bun must be retied to a higher position, secured with a wooden pin long enough to double as a knitting needle. One tug too hard, and it's a headache until lunchtime. The hairdresser assigned to your wing moves swiftly, twisting, tucking, then fixing it with what might be sorcery and mild contempt. You thank her anyway. A younger girl near you is struggling with her waistband, It's twisted. You notice it, but you don't say anything until a senior lady clears her throat. Then you gently nudge the girl, straighten it, and share the kind of small smile that says, "We're in this together." Kindness in the court is rare, but treasured. You file out with the others, robes swishing, slippers whispering over the polished floors. You head toward the Queen's quarters, where your first duty of the day begins, attending her morning greeting. It's not like tea and cookies. It's more like coordinated choreography with zero music. You enter the antechamber and kneel immediately. The cold seeps into your bones. A moment later, the Queen's presence is announced, not by trumpet or fanfare, but by silence, the kind that folds neatly over everything and makes you inhale through your nose just a bit slower. She glides in, taller than you remember, wrapped in robes so thick they might double as armor. Her face is expressionless, but her eyes are alert. You bow low, forehead to floor, and stay there until the lady-in-waiting clicks her tongue softly. You're cued to rise. Your job here? To be part of the background tapestry, to nod, to pass objects, to blend in, and yet somehow still be noticed just enough to not be forgotten. Mainstream historical fact. Royal women in the Joseon Dynasty were expected to embody Neo-Confucian virtues, modesty, obedience, quiet dignity. Court ladies were trained not just in etiquette, but in how to embody silence, so gracefully it almost became power. Today, you're assigned to prepare ink and brushes for the Queen's morning scroll writing. You set the inkstone in place, pour a small amount of water, and begin to grind the ink stick in smooth, rhythmic circles. It smells of soot and something ancient, like rainwater from a place no one remembers. The Queen writes slowly, her brushstrokes even and controlled. You can't see the characters clearly, but they flow with the weight of someone used to her words being read by many and questioned by none. You kneel beside her quietly, offering paper, holding a clean cloth, waiting for her nod or sigh. Quirky tidbit. Some royal women wrote entire poetry anthologies that were never meant to be read aloud. Their verses were tucked into chests or copied into ledgers used only by women of court, full of metaphors so elaborate they made your brain do somersaults. Suddenly, the Queen pauses, dabs her brush on the cloth you provided, and murmurs something under her breath. You catch only the last part, something about the river refusing to freeze. You nod slightly, even if you don't understand it. Sometimes agreeing gracefully is the entire job. Historians still argue whether these daily writing rituals were genuine expressions of the Queen's agency or just ceremonial performance. Some believe the Queen had more influence than records show. Others say her ink dried on paper no one read. When the Queen finishes, she stands. You bow again. Your knees ache. Your back is on fire. You don't complain. As she exits, the room exhales. Everyone relaxes half a vertebra. Then comes cleanup. You fold the writing mat, collect the brushes, clean the inkstone. Your motions are practiced, but you still feel the weight of invisible judgment hovering like incense smoke. You step out of the Queen's wing into the courtyard, where the sun has fully arrived. The stone paths sparkle with frost. A few sparrows flit between the trees. It's mid-morning now, and your next assignment is less formal, but no less critical. You head toward the document archives. Here's the part no one sees in dramas. Court ladies didn't just serve tea and look decorative. Some were record keepers, literate and detail-obsessed. You help manage the borrowing ledger. Every scroll, brush, ink pot, and wooden tablet is logged, tracked, and accounted for. Inside the archive, it smells like dry paper and candle wax. You nod to the keeper, a stoic woman in her 40s who's seen more scandal than gossip scrolls let on. She hands you a ledger and points toward the back shelf. Someone misplaced a tax record, and it's your job to find it. You kneel, flip through pages, scan handwritten Hangul and classical Chinese, and eventually find a misfiled record. You're about to return it when something catches your eye, an old poem scribbled in the margin. It's unsigned, clearly unauthorized, and absolutely beautiful. It speaks of longing, not romantic, but existential, like a tree wondering why it still grows when no one watches. You copy it discreetly, fold the tiny paper, and slip it into your sleeve. Outside, the wind picks up. Bells chime from somewhere deeper in the palace. The hour is turning again, and so are you. You enter the dressing chamber, or rather, a shared space cluttered with lacquered chests, folded silks, and the soft rustling of a dozen other women trying to wrangle their robes into compliance. No mirrors here, just memory, routine, and a quietly judgmental hierarchy of eyes. Today, you're expected to wear your formal layers, meaning at least 3 distinct pieces, and possibly 4 if some important might glance vaguely in your direction. You reach for your main robe, a saffron-colored chima that's been pressed and repressed until it holds a faint whiff of pine-smoked starch. Beneath it, the white inner geoghery hugs your frame like an apology. The top layer, navy, embroidered with pale cranes, is the one that makes your arms ache when you lift them, but it's also the one that tells the world you belong here. Sort of. One of the older ladies helps you fasten the raigi, a decorative tassel meant to hang from your waistband. It's said to ward off misfortune and attract blessings. Yours is shaped like a tiny gourd, carved from peach wood and dyed with crushed indigo. You don't know if it works, but you wear it anyway. In this place, you collect protections like candy. The hairstyle is next, and here's where things get dicey. Your bun must be retied to a higher position, secured with a wooden pin long enough to double as a knitting needle. One tug too hard, and it's a headache until lunchtime. The hairdresser assigned to your wing moves swiftly, twisting, tucking, then fixing it with what might be sorcery and mild contempt. You thank her anyway. A younger girl near you is struggling with her waistband. It's twisted. You notice it, but you don't say anything until a senior lady clears her throat. Then you gently nudge the girl, straighten it, and share the kind of small smile that says, "We're in this together." Kindness in the court is rare but treasured. You file out with the others, robes swishing, slippers whispering over the polished floors. You head toward the Queen's quarters, where your first duty of the day begins, attending her morning greeting. It's not like tea and cookies. It's more like coordinated choreography with zero music. You enter the antechamber and kneel immediately. The cold seeps into your bones. A moment later, the Queen's presence is announced, not by trumpet or fanfare, but by silence, the kind that folds neatly over everything and makes you inhale through your nose just a bit slower. She glides in, taller than you remember, wrapped in robes so thick they might double as armor. Her face is expressionless, but her eyes are alert. You bow low, forehead to floor, and stay there until the lady-in-waiting clicks her tongue softly. You're cue to rise. Your job here? To be part of the background tapestry. To nod, to pass objects, to blend in, and yet somehow still be noticed just enough to not be forgotten. Mainstream historical fact. Royal women in the Joseon Dynasty were expected to embody Neo-Confucian virtues, modesty, obedience, quiet dignity. Court ladies were trained not just in etiquette, but in how to embody silence, so gracefully it almost became power. Today, you're assigned to prepare ink and brushes for the Queen's morning scroll writing. You set the inkstone in place, pour a small amount of water, and begin to grind the ink stick in smooth, rhythmic circles. It smells of soot and something ancient, like rainwater from a place no one remembers. The Queen writes slowly, her brush strokes even and controlled. You can't see the characters clearly, but they flow with the weight of someone used and her words being read by many and questioned by none. You kneel beside her quietly, offering paper, holding a clean cloth, waiting for a nod or sigh. Quirky tidbit. Some royal women wrote entire poetry anthologies that were never meant to be read aloud. Their verses were tucked into chests or copied into ledgers used only by women of the court, full of metaphors so elaborate they made your brain do somersaults. Suddenly, the queen pauses, dabs her brush on the cloth you provided, and murmurs something under her breath. You catch only the last part, something about the river refusing to freeze. You nod slightly, even if you don't understand it. Sometimes agreeing gracefully is the entire job. Historians still argue whether these daily writing rituals were genuine expressions of the queen's agency or just ceremonial performance. Some believe the queen had more influence than records show. Others say her ink dried on paper no one read. When the queen finishes, she stands. You bow again. Your knees ache. Your back is on fire. You don't complain. As she exits, the room exhales. Everyone relaxes half a vertebra. Then comes cleanup. You fold the writing mat, collect the brushes, clean the inkstone. Your motions are practiced, but you still feel the weight of invisible judgment hovering like incense smoke. You step out of the queen's wing into the courtyard, where the sun has fully arrived. The stone paths sparkle with frost. A few sparrows flit between the trees. It's mid-morning now, and your next assignment is less formal, but no less critical. You head toward the document archives. Here's the part no one sees in dramas. Court ladies didn't just serve tea and look decorative. Some were record keepers, literate and detail-obsessed. You help manage the borrowing ledger. Every scroll, brush, ink pot, and wooden tablet is logged, tracked, and accounted for. Inside the archive, it smells like dry paper and candle wax. You nod to the keeper, a stoic woman in her 40s who's seen more scandal than gossip scrolls let on. She hands you a ledger and points toward the back shelf. Someone misplaced a tax record, and it's your job to find it. You kneel, flip through pages, scan handwritten Hangul and classical Chinese, and eventually find a misfiled record. You're about to return it when something catches your eye. An old poem scribbled in the margin. It's unsigned, clearly unauthorized, and absolutely beautiful. It speaks of longing, not romantic, but existential, like a tree wondering why it still grows when no one watches. You copy it discreetly, fold a tiny paper, and slip it into your sleeve. Outside, the wind picks up. Bells chime from somewhere deeper in the palace. The hour is turning again, and so are you. The bell chimes again, not the sharp one for court events, but the mellow wooden clapper that signals mid-afternoon duties. You and the other women rise from your mats, adjust your robes with practiced tug at the sleeves, and fall into line like silken shadows moving through stone corridors. Your next assignment brings you to the royal kitchen. Not to cook, not exactly, but to assist the ladies who serve meals to the queen and senior consorts. You're not allowed to prepare food directly for the royals yet. That privilege is reserved for older, more experienced court ladies who can distinguish between 10 varieties of rice with their eyes closed. You enter through the side door, and immediately the heat wraps around you like a woven cloak. The scent is heavenly: ginger, sesame oil, roasted chestnuts, simmering fish stock. Your stomach, still settling from lunch, grumbles anyway. You're met with a flurry of motion. Women fanning coals, pounding rice cakes with wooden mallets, slicing radishes so thin they're almost translucent. You're handed a large woven basket filled with dried anchovies and told to sort them, heads and tails separated, no broken ones, and absolutely no snacking. You sit cross-legged on a straw mat and begin, fingers moving on autopilot, your nose twitching with the salty aroma. Mainstream historical fact: royal kitchens in Joseon weren't just places of cooking. They were rituals of status. The food served to the queen was selected with seasonal alignment, symbolic significance, and astrological timing. Every bite was calculated. As you work, A woman beside you mutters that the last batch of soybean paste didn't ferment properly. It smells like a disappointed grandmother. You snort a laugh, almost drop a fish. She winks and goes back to her cutting board. A small, rebellious joy. Then a crash. A ceramic jar hits the ground and shatters. Everyone freezes. A younger girl kneeling nearby turns pale, her hands trembling. It was a ginger jar meant for the evening tonic. The head kitchen lady storms over, her face already set to mildly terrifying. But before anyone can speak, a more senior court lady steps forward and calmly says, "It slipped from my hands." The girl is spared. You make a mental note. Debts in the court aren't always repaid with money. You're asked to deliver a tray of fruit to the Queen's chamber. Not to enter, of course, just to pass along to her personal attendant. The tray is carefully balanced. Sliced persimmon, winter pear, and tiny roasted pine nuts. You carry it with both hands, walking with the grace of someone who has learned that gravity is a snitch. You reach the outer chamber and bow as the attendant takes the tray. She doesn't thank you, but she nods. Barely. That's considered high praise. Quirky tidbit. Court ladies often develop elaborate sign language among themselves, finger flicks, eyebrow arches, tiny coughs, to communicate under the radar. Entire conversations could happen in a hallway with no words exchanged. As you return to the kitchen, you're called aside by one of the mid-ranking ladies. She needs help preparing a herbal pouch for a senior consort's bath. Apparently, it's the one that smells like cedar and rain, and is rumored to soften the skin so much that you'll slip right out of your own bad luck. You help measure the herbs, mugwort, chrysanthemum, licorice root, and tie them in a muslin pouch with a string dyed in beet juice. The scent fills your lungs, earthy and bright at the same time. You close your eyes for a moment, just breathing. Historians still argue whether these herbal rituals were primarily medicinal or spiritual. Some believe they were remnants of shamanistic practices woven into court life. Others argue they were just glorified spa days wrapped in protocol. Once the pouch is complete, it's sent off with another girl, and you're finally allowed a short break. You step outside into a small courtyard tucked behind the kitchen, a quiet spot where no one asks questions and no one hovers. You sit on the stone steps, legs stretched in front of you, and watch the afternoon light hit the palace walls at an angle that makes everything look older, more forgiving. A few birds hop across the stones. One pecks at a fallen rice grain. Another ruffles its feathers like it just won an argument. You hear footsteps and turn to see one of the older seamstresses joining you. She doesn't say anything, just sits beside you, unwrapping a small cloth bundle that holds a rice cake and 2 slices of jujube. She offers you one. You accept it with a nod. You eat in silence. A peaceful one. Later, you're summoned to the linen quarters, laundry day. Now, this isn't the laundry you're imagining. There's no soap bubbles, no scrub boards, no cartoonish ringing. This is precise, meditative, almost holy. The linens are soaked in ash water to remove stains, then rinse in river water filtered through woven baskets of pebbles. You're assigned to the rinsing line, standing barefoot on a stone slab, cold water lapping at your ankles. You dip, fold, press, lift, over and over. The rhythm sets in. The world shrinks to cloth and current. You hum something under your breath, an old lullaby your grandmother used to sing. Or maybe it's one you made up. Doesn't matter. Mainstream historical fact. The royal laundry was divided by status. Robes for the king, queen, consorts, and high officials were washed separately and handled by different tiers of women. Even the rinse water was sometimes changed between ranks. You reach the next robe, but it slips, splatters water up your sleeve. You gasp, laugh, shake it off. One of the girls next to you grins and splashes a little more your way. You splash back. There's a moment of rebellion, brief and glorious. before a stern voice in the stone path makes everyone freeze again. Back to work. But the laughter still bubbles quietly under the surface, like a hot spring waiting for its moment. You finish your shift with pruny fingers and a soaked hemline, but something about the ritual makes you feel cleaner, too. Like some of the weight you carry got rinsed out along with the royal linens. You head back toward the living quarters, where dusk is beginning to stain the sky that soft purple blue. Lanterns flicker to life one by one. Your shoulders ache. Your feet protest. Your hair is slipping slightly from its pin, but you're almost at the quiet part of the day. Almost. The first stars prick through the sky, faint but defiant, as you step into the dim corridor that leads to the evening chambers. It smells faintly of wax and with smoke, comforting in the way that familiarity often is. Your footsteps soften over the woven mats lining the hallway. In this part of the palace, voices drop to whispers. Fabric rustles more gently, and everyone seems to be preparing for something quieter, slower, almost sacred. You and a few other court ladies are assigned to assist in the evening readiness of one of the senior royal consorts, which means drawing warm water from the bathhouse, setting out her night clothes, heating small sachets of barley to warm her bedding, and making sure the oil lamps are trimmed and ready. Everything must be clean in its place and, most importantly, never rushed. The palace may be full of hurry and hierarchy, but nighttime prep is treated like a ritual. You carry a lacquer tray holding folded garments, delicate robes in soft pink and pale indigo embroidered with tiny silver peonies, and follow a senior attendant through 3 wooden doors. Inside, the chamber is already humming with quiet energy. 2 other court ladies are kneeling beside the raised sleeping platform, smoothing out a silk blanket, while another gently fans and sends smoke toward the window. The scent is subtle, sandalwood, maybe, or mugwort, something sleep-friendly and slightly mystical. Mainstream historical fact. In the Joseon Palace, even bedtime routines were infused with Confucian order. Sleeping arrangements, dress codes, and even the timing of each gesture followed specific manuals that regulated the daily rhythm of royal life. You kneel and place the folded garments in the designated spot, careful not to disturb the spacing of the tray's contents. Nothing can overlap. Every item must breathe. You catch your reflection in a lacquered comb case and barely recognize yourself in the low light. Eyes tired, hair neat but slightly frayed. Cheeks still faintly flushed from the steam of the linen hall. The consort enters silently, trailed by her inner attendants. You drop your gaze immediately and bow, forehead brushing the floor. She says nothing to you directly. She never has, but her mood seems calm tonight. That's good. Sometimes she's not. And those are the evenings when everyone walks like they're balancing trays of oil lamps. You rise only after she's settled. Then, your group bows out, leaving behind the quiet warmth of the chamber. You don't speak again until you return to the hallway. A girl behind you whispers. She has a new comb, tortoiseshell. You nod, not really caring, but too tired to disagree. You're off duty for a while. You head toward the shared sleeping quarters, a long hall lined with low pallets for the lower-ranking court ladies. There are no beds, no privacy, just rows of straw mats and a sense that everything you say might be overheard, even in sleep. You find your place, stow your shoes, and fold your outer robe into a neat square. Your sleep garment is simpler, cotton rather than silk, but still soft and well-kept. You rub your hands together to generate a bit of warmth. It's not cold, but your fingers have a hard time forgetting the river water from earlier. Quirky tidbit. Court ladies often develop rivalries over sleeping spots. Corners were prized, since they offered fewer accidental elbow jabs. Some would barter small favors, snacks, or gossip just to swap places for a night. Tonight, you're somewhere in the middle. Not quite elbow zone, not quite safe haven. You lay down, stretching out slowly, exhaling like it's your first real breath all day. Historians still argue whether the rank system among court ladies created solidarity or division. Some say the shared hardship built unshakable bonds. Others point to backstabbing, jealousy, and whispered sabotage. As the room dims further, quiet conversations begin to rise like steam, low, conspiratorial, meandering. She cried again at the evening meal. Who did? The third consort. What happened? Someone served her spicy radish instead of pickled cucumber. She hates radish. A chorus of barely suppressed laughter. You smile into your pillow. Royal drama, endlessly recycled. You're just starting to drift when you hear the soft jingle of anklets, ceremonial ones. Everyone stops talking. A higher-ranking lady is entering. You can tell by the way the room subtly rearranges itself, bodies shifting, back straightening in the darkness. She moves with slow precision, probably enjoying the effect. She pauses near your mat, just long enough for your heart to quicken, then continues. Just a false alarm. She's checking attendance. Or maybe she's just bored. Eventually, the room stills again. You're almost asleep when someone near you whispers, "Did you hear about the ghost?" And that's it. You're awake again. "There's no ghost," someone grumbles. "There is. Near the east wing, one of the seamstresses saw a lady in white walking backward past a window." "Oh, please. That's just Mistress Yoon. She always walks weird when her back acts up." Laughter again, a little louder this time. You smile. Somehow, even surrounded by strict formality, there's always room for nonsense. Someone passes a small piece of candied chestnut down the line. You take it without question, nibbling in the dark. It tastes like sugar and earth and secrets. A luxury, passed like contraband under the eye of tradition. You curl onto your side and pull the thin blanket over your shoulder. Outside, a night breeze brushes the paper walls. Somewhere in the far-off courtyard, a cricket tries out its solo. Your breath slows. The wooden beams overhead creak slightly, as if adjusting their weight for the night. Someone nearby snores, a tiny, kittenish snore, and someone else rolls over with a sigh. You let the rhythm of tired bodies lull you. Just before sleep takes you fully, you think of the consort's robe you folded, of the scent of sandalwood, of the way rice water fell on your skin, and of how, somehow, today passed without disaster. You survived the court. For one more day, a hand nudges your shoulder before the sky even thinks about loosening its grip all night. You blink into darkness, disoriented for half a breath, until the low hiss of someone's whisper clarifies your fate. Dawn water duty. Of course. Your turn again. You sit up, blanket sliding to your waist, and the chilled air schemes your skin like an uninvited cat. The great palace is still half asleep, but the well bucket never waits. You roll to your knees, careful not to step on the girl snoring beside you. Everyone sleeps close, bodies align like stacked brushstrokes. You ease out of the row, grab your outer jacket, pale cotton stiff with last night's starch, and shrug it on. The floorboards creak. A few sleepy grumbles drift through the gloom. Good luck, and watch out for the ghost. You grin. Apparently the fake phantom has become official lore in less than 12 hours. Slipping into the corridor, you're hit with that specific pre-dawn scent. Cold stone, guttering lamp oil, and the faint gasp of incense left over from midnight rituals. You pad past shuttered windows, the paper pane still black with night. A single attendant waits at the end of the hall, holding the water tokens, small bamboo discs stamped with the date. She counts them into your palm without a word. Translation: bring back exactly this many buckets. No more, no less. The palace keeps receipts, even on hydration. Outside, The courtyard air nights chill through your sleeves, but you're too drowsy to shiver properly. Lanterns listen to breeze, their light small and solemn. The eastern horizon wears the thinnest smear of gray, like someone smudged charcoal on silk. You cross the flagstones toward the great well, the bucket yoke clacking softly over your shoulder, and remind yourself not to yawn too wide. The senior steward swears yawns let evil spirits hitchhike into your lungs. You're 60% sure he made that up to keep everyone looking alert, but why risk supernatural carpoolers before sunrise? Mainstream historical fact. In 15th century Joseon, palace wells were guarded assets. Water drawn at dawn was considered purest for the royal kitchens and cosmetics rooms, believed to be free of dust or ill luck that daytime visitors might stir. Low-ranking court ladies, meaning you, rotated to the pre-dawn chore schedule, hauling dozens of pounds of water before breakfast, even whisper hello. You reach the well terrace and join two other girls already lowering their buckets. Rope squeaks against the wooden spindle, echoing in the quiet like an overeager cricket. You hook your pail to the line, feel the brief float as it drops, then the satisfying plunk when it noses the water. You crank carefully. The rope's rough, and you've seen girls lose fingernails to morning haste. When the bucket surfaces, droplets sparkle in lamplight, tiny stars escaping captivity, before falling back with shy plips. You heft the load onto the yoke, muscles complaining like rusty hinges. 3 more trips to go. Who needs a gym membership when you've got state-sponsored medieval CrossFit? Quirky tidbit. Some court ladies claim the well hosted a water dragon who judged your bucket technique. A smooth, splash-free haul meant blessings. Too much sloshing earned you a week of bad hair days. Considering how sacred hair presentation is here, bun height equal to social clout. That's a terrifying curse. You resolve to lift like a champion. No dragon-induced frizz for you. By the second haul, your arms warm. Your breath fogs in rhythm with the rope's rotation, and the faintest bird call cracks the silence. First note an avian orchestra tuning up for dawn. Lanterns reveal more faces now. A clerk yawning on his way to record hall. 2 palace guards changing shifts. A kitchen boy sprinting with rice sacks like a rice-powered comet. Life restarts, inch by inch. You shuffle toward the water kitchen, buckets swinging, shoulders numb. Inside, a single brazier glows. A matronly attendant sits cross-legged, tally scroll open, writing brush poised like a tiny spear. She gestures you closer. You kneel, present 1 bamboo token, then tip your bucket into a large earthen jar. The water hits with a hollow glug, faint steam rising when it kisses the brazier's heat. She checks the water line against an etched mark. Quality control at 5 a.m. You pass. She stamps your token, hands it back, and you trudge out for round 3. Historians still argue whether these elaborate dawn procedures improved hygiene significantly or mainly reinforced palace hierarchy. Some scholars note cholera outbreaks were rarer inside royal walls, suggesting the system worked. Others point out that the labor conveniently reminded lower ranks of their place. Below cold stone, above sleepy fish, and always beneath the gaze of Confucian order. Trip 3 blurs into trip 4. Your shoulders throb, yet there's a strange meditation in the repetition. Lower, spool, lift, pour, stamp. On the final ascent, the horizon blushes pink, as though embarrassed by its own lateness. Temple drums boom in the distance, marking the official start of the palace day. Their deep thunder rattles the well cover beneath your feet. You finish pouring, bow to the tally matron, and stagger outside. First sunlight spills across roof tiles, igniting them in copper fire. You pause on the steps, letting morning warmth soak your face. Somewhere, laundry lines snap as attendants hang fresh linens. A flock of sparrows erupts from persimmon tree, swirling like a living ribbon before scattering to roofs. You think about soft beds you don't own, breakfast you haven't earned yet, and the way dawn feels like both an ending and a beginning, you return the empty yoke to the storage alcove. A colleague greets you with a half-awake grin, her hairpins crooked. "Dragon give you good score?" she jokes, noticing your unsplashed sleeves. You waggle a shoulder, maybe yes, maybe no. She laughs, and for a heartbeat, hierarchy shrinks to shared exhaustion. Back in the dormitory hall, daybreak slants through the windows, painting sleepy faces gold. Girls stir, folding blankets, braiding hair. You slip off your jacket, flex aching arms, and fan yourself with a sleeve like a dramatic merchant hawking breezes. One of the younger attendants giggles. She hasn't drawn water yet. She will soon. You sit on your mat, stretch legs, and savor the quiet pride blooming behind your fatigue. Water is life. Cliché but true, and you help carry it into the palace veins. Later, when the royal kitchen simmer rice porridge or the queen's favorite ginseng tea, some invisible drop will have your fingerprint of effort on it. That thought tastes better than any candied chestnut. A bell chimes outside. Call for morning assembly. No rest yet. You tie your sash, smooth your collar, and stand. Another day begins, layer by careful layer, just like those stacked water buckets. You straighten, inhale, and step into the corridor. Somewhere above, a dragon, imaginary or not, nods approval. The corridor hums with slippered footsteps and whispered yawns as you file toward the main courtyard. Morning assembly waits, mandatory for all court ladies except the sick, the punished, or the unspeakably lucky. You count yourself among the living, obedient, and slightly sore. So you go. The line moves like syrup over rice cakes. Slow, sticky, and absolutely inevitable. Outside, the sun's barely had time to climb above the tiled rooftops. But the courtyard already buzzes with structure. The head matron stands beneath the veranda, her posture so erect it could slice melons. Behind her, a clerk unrolls a scroll with the names of every lady assigned to the inner court. Yours is on there, printed in blocky Hangul, next to a code indicating your current rotation. You hope she doesn't pause when she hits your row. Usually that means a lecture, or worse, reassignment. You stand in rows of 10, each girl a brushstroke in a living painting, blues, saffrons, russets, and teals. The symmetry would make a mathematician weep. Somewhere behind you, someone stifles a sneeze. Bold, the head matron clears her throat. The crowd stiffens. She starts reading the daily roster, whose turn it is to scrub the royal wardrobe tiles, who must inventory the brushroom, who'll spend 8 hours copying poetry without crying. You silently pray for a light duty post, like polishing hairpins or counting bamboo cones. Instead, when she gets to your name, she says, "Royal Apothecary Detail, report after breakfast." Your stomach sinks, not because the apothecary is dangerous, though the smell could defeat a donkey, but because it means dealing with the herb mistress, a woman whose voice is all the warmth of pickled radish, and whose gaze makes fish wish for different lifetimes. You suppress a sigh. This is your fate. Today, you belong to medicine. Mainstream historical fact. The royal apothecary in the 1400s was no mere herb closet. It was a full-blown medical facility run by female physicians and court ladies trained in pharmacology. They brewed everything from digestive teas to complex elixirs using ginseng, deer antler, angelica root, and occasionally powdered jade. Court ladies assigned to apothecary duty assisted with sorting, brewing, and delivering remedies, sometimes even to the queen herself. As the bell rings, you break formation and drift toward the dining hall, like the rest of the human river. Breakfast is plain: millet porridge, 3 radish slices, and 1 half-salted plum that stares at you like it knows this isn't the fun part palace life. Still, it's warm, and after carrying dawn water, you eat like someone might pry from your fingers. After breakfast, you head to the apothecary wing, following the smell of dried mugwort and scorched garlic. The herb mistress meets you at the door. No greeting, just a thin nod and a gesture to a pile of roots the size of sleeping squirrels. "Sort these," she says, already walking away. You kneel beside the pile. There are gnarled roots, striped barks, fuzzy leaves, and one thing that looks suspiciously like a bat's wing. You sort by texture, scent, and sheer hope. Some roots get bundled with red thread, others in little muslin packets. You label each with tiny ink tags written so small they make ants seem extravagant. Your hands stain brown. Your sleeves pick up the tang of dried ginger, and your nose stops registering anything past funky soup fog. Quirky tidbit. According to old palace gossip, the herb mistress once cured a royal consort's mysterious fainting spells using boiled silkworm droppings and honey. The lady reportedly swooned less, but refused sweets for a year afterward. You eye a jar of suspicious pellets on the shelf and scoot a little farther from it, just in case. After sorting, you assist in decocting, boiling herbs into bitter, medicinal soup that smells like despair with a hint of licorice. A large iron cauldron steams in the center of the room, bubbling with something that looks like tea and sounds like doom. You stir slowly with a paddle as thick as your forearm. The herb mistress leans and wants to sniff the brew. "Too much Angelica," she says. You nod solemnly and resist the urge to say, "Isn't there always?" Your arms ache by the third pot. You've been standing for hours, and there's still delivery duty left. Tiny clay jars, each sealed with wax and labeled with the patient's name, are lined up like obedient soldiers. You load 6 into a rattan tray, balance on your hip, and head toward the queen's quarters. Historians still argue whether court ladies in apothecary service were mere assistants or had a deeper knowledge of medicine. Some documents suggest advanced training. Others portray them as glorified delivery girls. Either way, their role placed them closer to the royal family, and sometimes into the crossfire of palace politics. You pass through 2 gates and 3 courtyards before reaching the queen's pavilion. The guard recognizes the apothecary's sash on your shoulder and waves you in. Inside, it's quieter than expected. The queen reclines on a padded mat, a scroll in her lap, her hair arranged like a poem. A senior attendant takes the tray with a respectful nod. You bow and back away, heels first, protocol above everything. On your way back, you catch a glimpse of the royal children chasing each other across the veranda, their laughter like flutes. One of them, maybe the crown prince, spots you, then decides you're a tree and hides behind your skirt. You freeze. The nursemaid shrieks, rushes over, and apologizes profusely. The boy grins, unfazed, then darts away again. You bow, resume walking, and try not to laugh. You're still carrying medicinal soup. Sloshing is forbidden. Back at the apothecary, you mop up spills, refill the rice chap box, and brush root dust off the shelves. The herb mistress inspects your bundles. "Acceptable," she says, which in her language is like receiving a parade in your honor. You dare to smile. She notices. Don't get cocky. The smile disappears. By dusk, your hands smell like ginger and ash. Your back aches and your feet hum with protest. But there's something satisfying in the rhythm of healing work, even if you mostly sort rhizomes and dodge moldy flour sacks. You return to the dormitory just in time for dinner. Seaweed soup and pumpkin rice. You eat in grateful silence. A girl next to you says she spent her whole day cleaning hairbrushes and found a live beetle in one. Maybe it wanted a makeover, she shrugs. You snort into your soup. Sleep feels dangerously close. Later, as you rub herbal balm into your calloused palms, you think about the queen sipping that bitter medicine you helped prepare. The idea settles over you like a warm blanket, your invisible fingerprint in her day. You tuck into your mat, shift once, then again, until the spot under your shoulder feels just right. The dormitory dimly glows with shared stories, shuffled feet, and the slow bloom of dreams. The sound of fabric brushing fabric wakes you. Not harsh, not hurried, just a steady rustle of bodies returning to duty. You blink, stretch, and sit up slowly, your limbs stiff but not sore. The dormitory is awash in soft gold as the morning light pours through lattice windows. One girl is already braiding her hair into its cord-approved spiral. Another is kneeling in front of a mirror the size of a teacup, furiously blotting her forehead with a rice powder puff. Today you're on laundry duty, which sounds harmless until you remember that royal laundry isn't just about rinsing dirt from silk. It's ceremony, science, and warfare. You pull on your work robe, dyed that faded blue-gray which always smells slightly of vinegar and old starch, and follow the line of girls headed toward the stone-walled laundry yard at the southern edge of the palace. The laundry compound is already alive with movement. Girls hauling wooden buckets, stirring soap root in deep troughs, wringing cloth by hand. You join your assigned group and head to your station, a wash bench with a low lip to catch runoff, and a shelf stacked with laundry tags made of inked mulberry paper. Each bundle is carefully wrapped and tagged by the chamber it came from. One mistake, one switched sash or discolored ceremonial sleeve, and it's back to toilet duty. Or worse, face-to-face apologizing to a royal concubine. No one survives that unscarred. Mainstream historical fact. In the Joseon court, washing was a high-stakes operation. White clothing was especially prized and had to be hand-washed with lye soap and bleach made from ash water and bean sprout juice. Special washing stones were used to beat the fabric. Yes, beat it into brightness. Laundry staff followed strict sequences of soaking, pounding, rinsing, sun-bleaching, and re-rinsing, often repeating the cycle several times. You reach for the first bundle. It's the Queen Dowager's underrobe. You've heard rumors that she can tell the difference between one rinsing cycle and two. With trembling hands, you soak the garment in warm lye water, then start scrubbing it gently with a small brush made of horsehair. Suds bloom like foam flowers. The girl next to you whispers, "You heard about Mihai?" She scrubbed the crown princess's sash too hard and snapped the thread. Got bumped down to lamp oil duty for a week. You wince and double-check your grip. No pressure, no snap threads. Then comes the beating stone. You roll the fabric out, smooth it flat, and begin the rhythmic pounding. Tap, tap, thump. Tap, tap, thump. It's part laundry, part percussion performance. Your arms already feel like overcooked noodles, but you keep going. At least the sky is clear today. Sun bleaching might actually work before the afternoon drizzle rolls in. Quirky tidbit. Some court ladies swore by a laundry chant, a rhythmic poem they'd mumble as they worked, believe it drive away bad luck or ink stains. It usually went something like, bright as moonlight, pure as snow, wash the stain and let it go. Some added personal flair, whiter than a ghost bottom. That one was less official. The sun climbs. Your back aches. But the first robe is now as white as the moon's favorite napkin. You pin it to a reed mat and carry it to the drying racks, where another girl arranges it under angled sunlight for even bleaching. Every cloth, every shadow, positioned like a royal painting. Laundry, you realize, is 40% scrubbing and 60% stage direction. Historians still argue whether court laundry practices stem from Buddhist cleanliness ideals or a uniquely Confucian obsession with visible order. Some say it was symbolic purification. Others claim it was just a matter of practicality, though pounding silk on rocks seems like the opposite of a gentle cycle. While your rinsed robes dry, you help refill water troughs with fresh canal water. The buckets are heavy, your arms tremble, but there's a quiet camaraderie here. One girl sings under her breath, something wordless, tuneless, but oddly soothing. A few of you join in with hums and low echoes, creating a makeshift choir of sudsy exhaustion. Lunch is brought to you in woven trays. Cold millet rice, pickle roots, and a slice of dried pear. You eat seated on overturned tubs, hands still damp, forearms speckled with soap. Someone offers a joke about how her face cloth smells more expensive than she does. Laughter bounces between you like sun on water. Later, you help fold the dried robes. Folding is an art. A wrong crease can offend someone's grandmother's memory. You smooth the queen's underrobe with reverence, aligning the sleeves perfectly. Then wrap it in soft mulberry paper. A senior attendant checks the tag, nods, and whisks it away. You're allowed a brief break. You sit under a pear tree near the laundry walls, its white blossoms fluttering like falling wishes. A breeze finds your collar, cools the sweat at your neck. A bee drifts by, clearly judging your posture. You stretch out your legs and let your head rest against the tree trunk. It's not sleep, but it's something close. Back on duty, you help prepare the bleaching tub, an enormous wooden basin into which cloth is placed, then douse in water filtered through ashes and boil bean sprout extract. The smell is assertive, but the result? Linen so bright it might outshine gossip. Near the end of the day, a girl brings a bundle labeled simply High Chamber Emergency. You all glance at each other. Emergency laundry is rare and terrifying. She opens a wrap to reveal a silk skirt splashed with what looks like cherry syrup. Maybe wine, maybe not wine. The room holds its breath. You're chosen for spot cleaning. Of course you are. You grab a tiny goat hair brush, wet with vinegar and warm rice water, and gently blot the stain. One dab at a time, one slow breath at a time. You pretend it's anything but blood. That makes it easier. You've heard the queen's maid once passed out mid-clean. You don't plan to join that drama club. Eventually, the stain lifts. The skirt is rinsed, dried, and pressed. You wrap it quickly. The senior attendant grabs it and sprints off, her expression unreadable. Sunset rolls in behind clouds. You hang your apron, stretch your neck, and splash cold water on your face. You're wet, sore, and smell like fermented radish shampoo. But you survived laundry day. Back at the dormitory, you peel off your work robe and drape it over the screen to dry. Girls chatter about their day. Someone's trying to embroider frogs onto a hand towel and failing spectacularly. Another found a silver hairpin hidden in a sash. You all debate whether that counts as a sign of royal favor or bad luck. Consensus? Depends on the moon. You settle onto your mat, arms too tired to lift. Someone tucks a warm rice pillow near your feet. You sigh, deep and grateful. Today, you scrubbed secrets and ironed royalty. You battled silk and won. And tomorrow, you might just fold towels. The scent of charcoal smoke and something vaguely sweet wakes you this time. Outside, the sky is smeared in that soft gray blue. That means it's almost, but not quite dawn. Today is kitchen duty. And the kitchen, you've quickly learned, waits for no one. You shuffle into your uniform, dull saffron with a brown sash that already smells faintly of soybean paste, and make your way through the still-sleeping palace to the lower courtyard. The kitchen complex sits near the southern gate, a small city unto itself. Stew smoke curling from chimneys, firewood stacked like puzzle pieces, dozens of feet already moving to an ancient rhythm of chop, stir, lift, serve, repeat. As you pass the threshold, the heat hits you, not unpleasant, at least not yet, but thick and immediate. It wraps around you like a steaming blanket dipped in fish stock. The head cook, a terrifying woman with forearms like temple pillars, nods in your direction. You, vegetable prep. And that's all she says. You obey as if your life depends on it. It probably does. Mainstream historical fact. The royal kitchen of the Joseon court operated like a finely tuned orchestra. Meals for the king and queen could require over 100 individual dishes, prepared fresh multiple times per day. There were entire teams for slicing, simmering, fermenting, and plating, each with its own set of rules and rituals. Dishes weren't just food. They were political signals and spiritual offerings rolled into one. You're handed a bowl of lotus roots, a bronze-handled knife, and a slate board. The roots must be sliced perfectly even, too thick, and they won't soak up flavor. Too thin, and they'll fall apart in the stew. You brace your hand and begin. Slice, turn, slice. The pattern becomes soothing after a while, like carving edible coins out of mud. Next to you, a girl is pickling garlic shoots in rice vinegar. The fumes hit your nose like a slap made of salad. You blink away tears, and she slides you a tiny smirk. Better than outhouse duty. You nod solemnly. Garlic tears are still tears. Then come the jangdak, those massive clay jars used to ferment sauces and pastes. You help stir the soybean mash in one, your whole arm disappearing up to the elbow. It smells like salt, earth, and time. One girl whispers that the jar you're stirring is older than you, possibly older than your grandmother. Quirky tidbit. Some Joseon cooks believe that jangdak had moods. If you insulted one, it might sour your soy sauce. If you sang to it, your dunjang would be richer. This led to the bizarre tradition of whispering lullabies to fermenting jars during particularly stressful lunar cycles. Apparently, mold hates anxiety. By mid-morning, you're assigned to plate assembly. This is where things get tense. Each ceramic dish must be chosen for harmony, not just in color and shape, but in what it says. Fish on blue porcelain, rice in pale earthenware, pickled plum on white. Balances everything. You are not just feeding a king. You are telling his ancestors he still respects the natural order. Historians still argue whether these elaborate meals were truly for nourishment or if they served more as daily diplomacy. Every bowl a message to court factions, political rivals, or even foreign ambassadors. Some say the real flavors were secondary. Others insist a well-grilled mackerel could shift an entire alliance. You carry trays into the second prep room where the food is briefly inspected by an overseer whose eyebrows say more than his mouth ever does. One raised brow, recut the radish. Both brows, pray to the kimchi gods. Today, your lotus root slices pass with no reaction at all, which is somehow the highest praise. Later, you help with testing. That is, sampling spoonfuls of dishes to make sure they aren't too salty, too sour, or, worst of all, unbalanced. You sip a beef broth infused with ginseng and pear. It tastes like warmth itself. Someone hands you a rice cake, still steaming from a mold. You bite it and feel joy unfurl across your tongue like a silk banner. For a few golden minutes, being a court lady is absolutely worth it. The bells ring. The king's lunch hour approaches. Trays are lined, robes are smoothed, postures corrected. The highest-ranking kitchen ladies will deliver the final arrangement, while the rest of you stand at attention, like culinary backup dancers ready to jump in if a lotus root gets dropped. Once they leave, the kitchen shifts gears to prepare for the servant's meal. This is your first chance to sit. You plop onto a wooden stool and stretch your legs. Lunch is ladled into clay bowls, rice topped with leftover mushroom porridge, and a single grilled chestnut. You don't complain. It's warm, and right now that's enough. Afterward, clean up. Scrubbing pots big enough to hide in. Scraping griddles with bamboo scrapers. You catch your reflection in a polished lid and realize you've got fish paste in your eyebrows. Somehow, you've never looked more heroic. As afternoon light slants through the rafters, someone mentions a head cook's birthday is next week. There's whispered talk of a secret rice cake shaped like a rabbit. You make a mental note to learn rabbit mold technique, just in case culinary diplomacy ever includes surprise desserts. Your final task is to replenish the spice shelves. You count out bundles of cinnamon bark, dried tangerine peel, and powdered ginger. Each has its own compartment, like a sacred cabinet of dreams. You inhale the mixture and feel your brain tingle. Evening rolls in slowly. The kitchen's heat subsides. A few embers glow beneath the stew pots. You help one last time, stacking firewood, sealing leftover sauce crocks, brushing sesame seeds off the cutting boards. When you're dismissed, you step outside and feel air on your skin again. It's like rejoining the atmosphere after a day underwater. A breeze carries the scent of pine. The moon is rising, pale and watchful. Back at your dormitory, your feet ache, your shoulders throb, and you smell like 6 types of soup. But your stomach is full and your hands feel proud. You made something today. 100 somethings. All precise. All beautiful. All devoured by royalty in a room you may never see. But it matters. It counts. It always will. Before dawn's light can stretch across the palace tiles, your eyelids flutter open again. No bells. No summons. Just habit. You barely finished the day's kitchen shift, and now it's time for laundry duty. Your legs protest, but the thought of letting down the laundry matron, that terrifying woman with arms like broom handles and a stare that could remove mildew, compels you upright. Out you go, padding softly across the cool stone courtyard, your breath blooming in the chilly air. Laundry work starts before most of the palace wakes. You pass an older court lady already pulling back the canvas over the washing troughs. The scent of lye and wet linen greets you like a slap, invigorating and a little bit insulting. Your assignment, the royal underlayers, not glamorous, not even dignified, but essential. The royal family may wear silk, but that silk's at the top layers of linen and cotton. Inner robes that must be spotless, soft, and if possible, slightly scented with dried mugwort or pine needles. Mainstream historical fact. In 15th century Korea, the laundry of the royal household was entrusted to specialist maids who worked in a space called the Joseon. They used a combination of lye, pounding stones, and stream rinsing techniques, followed by air-drying garments on smooth bamboo racks. The laundry cycle followed strict calendrical timing. Some items could only be washed on specific days tied to lunar phases or ritual purity. You kneel at the basin, soaking the first bundle. It's hard to imagine these wrinkled pieces once graced the queen's own shoulders. But there it is, the faint embroidered hem you recognize from morning processionals. The queen's personal scent, ginseng, lotus, something elusive, lingers faintly in the fabric. Next comes the pounding. You raise the wooden mallet overhead and bring it down with a satisfying thwack. Water splashes upward, catching your jawline. Again, thwack. Again, thwack. The rhythm becomes meditative, broken only by the grunts of nearby girls and occasional bark from the laundry matron to hit like you mean it. Your arms begin to burn. You imagine adding upper body strength to your resume. Just below, can navigate 3 layers of protocol while hungry. A girl next to you chuckles, muttering, "This is why court ladies don't need husbands. We lift our own burdens." Quirky tidbit. Some palace legends claim that certain court ladies would hide coded love notes in folded laundry, hoping the recipient would find them during inspection. The most daring supposedly left pressed flower petals with secret meanings tucked into sleeve hems. Whether it ever worked, who knows? But the laundry matron once burned a letter she found between 2 underlayers without reading it aloud. You rinse the garments in a shallow stream, the water icy even in spring. Your fingertips go pink and numb, but the current is brisk and clean. You watch soap bubbles dance across the surface like tiny paper lanterns. Beside you, a junior maid sings under her breath, something tuneless but oddly comforting. The sun is rising now, casting golden ribbons across the drying yard. Bamboo racks stand like open arms, ready to embrace the day's clean linens. You drape each piece carefully, smoothing every wrinkle, aligning hems with precision that would impress a military tactician. You step back and admire your row. Pale cotton, ivory linen, a blush-toned petticoat for one of the princesses. They flutter gently in the wind, a dance of soft shadows and fresh scent. Historians still argue whether laundry duty was considered a punishment or a privilege. On one hand, you work with your body and smell like fermented soap for days. On the other, you touch the garments of royalty, saw stains that whispered of real lives beneath stiff ceremony. Some suggest it was both a humbling and a kind of honor. The matron inspects your line, her gaze sharp, her hand behind her back like a general on parade. She nods once, then moves on. You feel like you just want to medal in not disappointing her. Later, you help carry fire-heated irons wrapped in cloth to smooth the garments. These aren't irons like your grandmother's. No steam, no dials. Just metal blocks warmed over coals and pressed with deliberate hands. You try your best, only singeing one corner, and thank every household deity that is a towel, not a nobleman's sash. Lunch is taken behind the laundry pavilion. A simple barley porridge and pickled radish eaten with wooden spoons and shared jokes. Someone mentions that the king once had an entire tunic ruined because a laundry-maid used pine ash instead of wood ash. The tale ends with, and that's why we don't experiment. In the afternoon, it's mending time. You sit under a shaded overhang, needle in hand, patching a delicate robe that has clearly seen too many formal bows. Your stitches aren't perfect, but they hold. A nearby senior adjusts your work, threading a silver needle through the silk like she's drawing a map. Think of it like writing poetry with thread, she says. You smile. It's a poem about resilience. By late afternoon, the courtyard hums quieter. Most garments are drying. Some are folded. A few still swing on racks like shy dancers. You take a moment to lie on a sun-warmed bench, eyes half closed, letting your body remember stillness. Then a shout, storm clouds, and everyone leaps to life. Robes are grabbed. Cloth is bundled. You fling your arms full of damp garments and run towards shelter just as fat raindrops begin to fall. Within minutes, the clear sky is a soaking gray. And still, somehow, everyone is laughing. Even the matron, especially the matron. Back inside, the wet laundry is draped along rafters and hung near fire pits. Steam rises like incense. The air smells like warm cotton and with smoke. You sip a ladle of barley tea and feel the heat return to your limbs. Evening brings final inspections. Clean linens packed, sashes wrapped, robes folded so precisely it looks like no one ever wore them. Everything in its place. Everything ready for another day. You walk back to your quarters in the dark, a basket of folded underrobes on your hip. The moon peeks from behind the clouds. Somewhere, a cricket chirps, and you think, maybe tomorrow, someone will wear the garment you mended and never notice your work. Maybe that's the point. You round a corner, past the same laundry troughs now reflecting stars. The scent of soap still lingers faintly in your sleeves. You smile. You've washed away more than dirt today. Maybe even some doubt. You're up before dawn again, of course. This time for garden duty. It's not exactly the most glamorous assignment in the palace, but you're not complaining. Garden days mean less kneeling, less bowing, and most importantly, less proximity to terrifying officials. You slip on your russet wrap, braid your hair out of the way, and join the other sleepy-eyed court ladies making their way through the misty courtyard. Out beyond the inner gates, the royal medicinal garden stretches like a green quilt. Row after row of meticulously spaced plants, beds bordered by smooth river stones, and low walls built to block harsh winds. As you step through the threshold, the scent hits you: ginseng, mugwort, chrysanthemum, damp earth, and the faint sharpness of fermented compost. It's pungent, It's invigorating. It wakes you better than tea. You're paired with an older girl today, one of the court ladies who's been here long enough to know every plant by scent alone. She hands you a wooden basket and a pair of dull iron snips. "Stick to the mugwort first," she mutters. "It's picky about being harvested in the morning. Just like me." You laugh and she doesn't scowl. Progress. Mainstream historical fact. In 15th century Korea, palace herb gardens were not just ornamental. They supplied the royal physicians with plants for teas, tonics, salves, and ceremonial incense. Court ladies often assisted in cultivation and harvesting, especially those with assignments to the Nuon, the Royal Medical Bureau. You crouch beside the soft-leaved mugwort and get to work. Snip, bundle, layer into basket. The stems are sticky with dew, and the scent clings to your fingertips. The rhythm of harvesting is gentle, almost musical. You begin to hum. Your partner glares. You stop humming. Further down the row, you spy a cluster of crimson berries, since you are dogwood fruit, gleaming like drops of lacquered blood. You've been warned not to eat them raw unless you want to experience every stage of stomach regret. Still, they're beautiful. You add a few to the communal basket with exaggerated care. A soft rustle behind you. A gardener passes with a bamboo rake slung over his shoulder. You nod politely. He nods back, then whispers, "Watch out for bee nests near the ginger." Great. You keep your distance from the ginger patch. By midday, your knees are sore, your back is protesting, and your nose is permanently tuned to the scent of medicinal plants. Still, the garden holds something calming. You spot a rare violet blossom blooming among the feverfew and gently clip it. The older court lady glances over and raises an eyebrow. "Don't eat it," she says. "I wasn't going to." She nods slowly. "Sure." You head to the shaded pavilion where bundles of herbs are sorted for drying. The space is cool and smells like cedar. Inside, several girls are already stringing bundles upside down with twine, hanging them from a wooden beam like a canopy of wellness. One girl sneezes and mutters a curse you pretend not to hear. You join in, tying up your own bundle of mugwort with practiced knots. As you work, someone passes around a pot of barley porridge and a few wrinkled pears. You take yours gratefully. It tastes like tired hands and comfort. Quirky tidbit. Korean court records mention that certain palace gardens were rumored to grow invisible herbs. Not literally invisible, of course, but plants only visible or accessible to those deemed spiritually in tune. Some superstitious ladies claimed to see entire hidden patches during the full moon. Others said it was just fermented tea dreams. You've never seen any invisible herbs. But one time, you swear a ginseng root looked like your uncle. After lunch, it's watering time. You carry a wooden yoke balanced across your shoulders, each end weighted with clay buckets, sloshing with stream water. It's heavier than it looks. You waddle like a duck toward the sprout beds, ignoring the amused glances from more experienced hands. The ground squelches softly as you tilt the buckets, giving each row a careful drink. The water darkens the soil to rich black, and the plants almost seem to sigh with thanks. You whisper to them, "You're welcome." A soft breeze drifts through the garden, rustling leaves like gossip. A pair of sparrows land on the fence, one eyeing your lunch pear core like it's royalty. You toss it toward them. They retreat dramatically, then come back once you're not looking. In the far corner, a special plot is cordoned off with silk ribbon. You're not allowed in there. No one is. It's said to hold the imperial root, a single ginseng specimen planted decades ago and now watched more closely than some minor royals. You crane your neck. You don't see much, just a shadow beneath a paper screen, and a faint smell of moss and reverence. Historians still argue whether such sacred plants were actually medically superior or simply symbolic. Some insist they had more potency. Others say it was a placebo effect, boosted by court gossip and ceremonial handling. Either way, no one dare misuse them. The sun arcs lower. The garden begins to soften. Shadows stretch across the furrows. You gather the last of the dried herbs into linen bundles and stack them into cedar boxes marked for the new awan. The older court lady inspects your work. She says nothing, which is her version of applause. Before you leave, you press your palm against the warm soil, feeling the echo of life beneath your fingertips. It's the same soil that grew your medicine, your meals, and occasionally your mistakes. You head back to the arched stone gate, past a row of marigolds and a tiny wooden plaque labeled with characters too worn to read. You think it once said life, or maybe healing, or maybe both. Your arms are sore. Your hair smells like pine needles. You feel like a walking tea bag. But your basket is full and your work mattered. That's more than most days promise. You smile as you re-enter the palace, trailing the scent of mugwort and something unnameable but old. Older than titles, older than Judy's. Just the smell of something growing, and growing well. You think today might be different, maybe even restful, but then someone shouts your name before breakfast and tells you you've been summoned to the royal archives. You blink. The archives? No one gets sent there unless they've either made a mistake or memorized something no one else wanted to. Turns out, today it's neither. You've been selected to help copy records, which sounds boring until you remember what's in those records. Royal diaries, old court rulings, weather logs, poems written during eclipses, scandalous hairpin theft accusations. Everything. A full portrait of palace life, written in careful ink and polite vagueness. So you go, you bow, you accept the stiff brush, the coarse paper, the utterly unforgiving bottle of ink that will ruin your robes in one drop. You settle beside a wooden writing desk, its legs slightly uneven. Your knees hate it immediately. Mainstream historical fact. The Joseon Royal Archives were obsessively detailed. Not just about kings and queens, but also court events, astronomical occurrences, and even the daily habits of the royal family. Court ladies, especially those literate in classical Chinese or Hangul, were occasionally recruited to assist in transcribing or copying these records. Your first task? Transcribe the daily records of Queen Sohyeon's clothing inventory from the previous month. Riveting stuff. Truly, you read through line after line. 8 silk robes, 3 bamboo-scented underlayers, for pairs of embroidered slippers, 1 hairpiece shaped like a crescent moon. Everything dated, sorted, labeled. You sigh dramatically. The scribe next to you snorts. "You think this is dull," she whispers. "Last week I spent 2 hours writing about goose droppings near the southern gate. In detail." You stand corrected. Still, there's something meditative about it. Brush, stroke, lift, dip, repeat. The characters begin to float from your wrist like water flowing downstream. You find a rhythm. You stop overthinking your lines. You even catch yourself adding the tiniest curl at the end of one character, like a flourish. Then you panic and scrape it off before anyone sees. The head archivist walks past. She eyes your paper. She says nothing. A win. Quirky tidbit. Some scribes use their roles in the archives to secretly write poetry on the backs of official scrolls. Entire romantic sagas or breakup ballads, written in tiny Hangul script, so it wouldn't be noticed unless someone was nosy. Some of these whispers on parchment have survived, tucked between weather charts and royal tax ledgers. You glance behind you, just in case someone left a secret. Nothing yet. Maybe later. After lunch. A lukewarm rice porridge with suspiciously crunchy beans. You're handed a new task. Inventory records from the royal kitchens. Suddenly, your attention perks up. You learn which day the queen requested lotus seed cakes, which consort has a sesame allergy, which week a fish delivery was delayed due to heron interference. You want to write that ballad, but mostly it's lists, gallons of soy sauce, buckets of salt, jars of gochujang sealed with wax. You wonder if someone in the future will read your neat copies and picture a feast instead of a line item. You get lost in the details. Ink stains your fingertips, your sleeves fray at the elbows from brushing against the desk, and your knees have gone entirely numb. At one point, a low creaking groan echoes across the room. You freeze. It's just the shelf settling. Probably. Historians still argue whether the archives were truly neutral records or subtly political instruments. Some believe edits were made to flatter royalty, erase scandals, or paint a rosier version of controversial reigns. Others insist the scribes were fiercely loyal to the truth, even if it got someone demoted. You decide to toe the middle ground. Copy exactly what's written, but in your mind, you imagine what wasn't said. Like, why did they need 30 pots of honey that week? Who was really eating all the pears? A bell chimes. The archivist nods toward the windows. Your shift is done. Your spine protests as you stand. Your right hand twitches slightly, still gripping an imaginary brush. You stretch your fingers and gaze around the room one last time. The shelves rise around you like wooden cliffs, each scroll tucked into a cubby like a sleeping idea. The scent of dried ink and dusty rice paper is oddly comforting. This place feels like memory solidified, messy, selective, but enduring. Before you leave, you tuck a tiny paper scrap into your sleeve. Your practice characters from earlier. Just a sliver. Just yours. On the way out, someone taps your shoulder. It's the scribe from earlier. She hands you a folded note. You open it. Inside, a short Hangul poem about goose droppings and heartbreak. You grin. Sometimes, history isn't just what's remembered. It's what's scribbled in the margins. You're starting to sense the rhythm now, not just of footsteps on stone or the echo of voices in the hallways, but the deeper, subtler heartbeat of the palace. It's in the rustle of robes, the slow turning of seasons marked by what's blooming in the courtyard, and the silent choreography of daily expectations. You've seen the morning rituals and the kitchen fires, the midday walks and the embroidery sessions. But as the sun slips past its zenith, something shifts again. This is a time of layered silences, when court ladies return to their quarters for what might be the most precious commodity of all, a moment alone. Your chamber isn't large, but it's yours. A narrow platform serves as a sitting and sleeping area, while shelves carved directly into the walls hold rolled scrolls, carefully folded robes, and little ceramic jars with mysterious contents. You slide the paper screen shut behind you and breathe out, not deeply. There's no such thing as true privacy here, but enough to let your shoulders drop just a bit. The afternoon lull is both a necessity and a gift. After a full morning under watchful eyes and ceremonial decorum, this stretch of time allows for something vaguely resembling choice. You might reread a poem from a scroll passed down by your aunt, or sit cross-legged at the window, watching a crow tug at a pine cone in the garden below. Or maybe you'll do what most of your sisters do, unroll your sewing cloth, thread a needle, and lose yourself in the meditative hum of stitch after stitch. Mainstream historical fact. Gungyo court ladies in 15th century Korea were not allowed to leave the palace grounds freely, but within the walls they enjoyed small liberties, especially in their private time. Many use these windows for personal enrichment, quiet reflection, or refining skills like poetry, music, and calligraphy. Today, you decide to tackle a repair job. One of your sleeves is a loose hem, and while you could easily pass it off to another lady in waiting, there's something satisfying about doing it yourself. You work slowly, lining up the thread just so, your fingers trained by months of repetition. A breeze sneaks through a narrow gap in the screen, carrying the faintest scent of sandalwood and dust. There's a strange peace in this stillness, a kind of invisibility. No one is asking anything of you right now, which in a palace like this is as rare as a snowfall in May. You can think your own thoughts, hum an old folk tune under your breath, or, if you're really feeling bold, doodle something silly on the back of scrap paper, a rabbit with a fan, a crane in trousers. You laugh softly, scandalous, quirky tidbit. Despite their reputation for discipline and etiquette, many Korean court ladies had playful traditions during quiet hours, like creating origami riddles or sketching caricatures of their least favorite eunuchs, hidden, of course, inside scroll cases or behind cupboard doors. But your quiet is short-lived. A knock at the screen. Polite but firm. Court music practice, says a voice outside. Not a command, just a nudge. You sigh, tuck the thread back into your sewing pouch, and stand. Because yes, you play an instrument. Of course you do. Everyone here does. It's practically a requirement. One of those feminine refinements listed in every royal training scroll. And your specialty? The gaegeum. 12 silk strings stretched across polished paulownia wood, waiting to sing. You carry it carefully to the music hall, where the rest of the ensemble is already gathering. Today is a practice session for court ritual music, elegant, slow-paced melodies meant to accompany processions, royal banquets, and ancestral rites. There's no improvisation here. Every note must land precisely where it's written, no earlier, no later. It's less about individual expression and more about harmony. The group breathing together, string and wind and percussion moving like the gears of a timepiece. You sit on your cushion, adjust your posture, and begin. The pick in your fingers moves deftly. Notes rise, fall, pause, repeat. It's beautiful in that subdued, ceremonial way. But you miss the folk tunes you grew up with, the bright, mischievous melodies that twisted and twirled like gossiping sisters. Maybe one day, in the privacy of your chamber again, you'll dare to play one, softly, just once. Historians still argue whether court music practice in the Joseon Dynasty served more as performance training or as moral cultivation, aligning the inner self with Confucian ideals through ritualized sound. Either way, you're here, and you're plucking in rhythm. The sun begins to set, and the music fades. You bow to the instructor, gather your instrument, and return to your quarters once again. This time, the silence is richer. The day is winding down, and though there are still tasks ahead, dinner, more formalities, this twilight hour belongs to no one but you. You return to your quarters with your gaegeum hugged against your side. It's lacquered with still warm from your touch. Outside, the last of the sun is dipping low, painting the courtyard walls in deepening hues of amber and indigo. You don't need a clock to tell you the hour. This part of the day has a particular sound. Not silence, exactly, but a gentle softening. Footsteps fall lighter, voices drop to murmurs, and even the wind seems to hush, as if out of respect for the waning light. You place your instrument back into its cloth wrapping, folding it like a sleeping child. Nearby, someone passes carrying a tray of rice porridge and pickled radish, one of the younger kitchen runners, moving quickly before dinner bells call the entire lower court into motion. You catch a faint trace of sesame oil in the air. That means someone snuck extra flavor into tonight's pot. A minor rebellion, but one that lifts your mood. Soon, the dinner hour arrives. But unlike the loud, informal bustle of a commoner's meal, yours is a ceremony all its own. You make your way to the shared dining chamber, modest, tidy, lined with low tables and reed mats. No chairs. You sit on the floor, knees tucked politely, hands resting in your lap until the servers begin to arrive. Trays of delicate ceramic bowls are placed with reverent care. Steamed white rice, seaweed soup, seasoned fern stems, radish kimchi, grilled fish, and for a treat, chestnut jelly, sliced into perfect rectangles. Mainstream historical fact. Meals for court ladies in 15th century Korea were strictly balanced, both nutritionally and aesthetically. The rules of 5 colors and 5 tastes applied to nearly every dish, reflecting both Confucian ideals and a deeply ingrained culinary philosophy of balance. You eat quietly as always. Talking is discouraged at the table unless absolutely necessary. Not that you want to chat much anyway. You're too busy savoring the one hot meal of the day. You chew slowly, letting the textures unfold. The soft, savory flake of fish against the crunch of pickled radish. The gentle bitterness of mountain greens soothed by a spoonful of rice. Someone coughs softly beside you. Another adjusts her sleeve. A few glances are exchanged over bowls, but no one speaks. There's a certain intimacy to it, though. The shared silence of women who have endured the same heat, stitched the same seams, practiced the same songs. You're not friends, not exactly, but you are woven into the same cloth. And then it's done. Bowls are cleared, trays lifted, and once again you stand and return to your quarters. Except now the palace is different. Quirky tidbit. By early evening, the entire Joseon court would undergo a quiet transformation. Lanterns, fueled by animal fat or sesame oil, were lit across the grounds. Not too many, just enough to guide the way. Shadows grew longer, whispers closer. This was ghost hour, and palace stories about fox spirits, wrong queens, and jealous ghosts thrive best after sunset. You walk slower now, keeping close to the paper lanterns at the corridors. Their warm flicker casts your shadow at strange angles, long and bending, like something you could step into and never come back from. You reach your room and slide the door closed behind you. Inside, a small lamp burns low. It's just enough to see by as you prepare for bed, changing out your outer robe into a lighter underlayer, brushing your hair with slow, downward strokes, pinning it loosely into a braid. This is the hour when thoughts grow teeth. Sometimes you think about home, wherever it was before. You imagine your older brother's laugh, or your mother's hands patting rice cakes into shape. You picture the hill behind your village, where spring azaleas bloomed so brightly they look like fire. You wonder what became of the friend you used to share secrets with under a willow tree. And other times, nights like this one, you wonder what happens next. Historians still argue whether the rigid structure of court life gave women a certain kind of hidden power, or merely trapped them in elaborate routines masked as honor. You suspect the truth is somewhere in between. There is power in understanding the rules deeply enough to bend them, but there is also fatigue. You lie down on your mat, the quilt drawn lightly over your legs. The woven walls of your room creak softly in the night breeze. Somewhere, a door clicks shut. Somewhere else, a dog barks once, then falls silent. A temple bell in the distance chimes 9 times, then no more. Tonight, like every night, you wait for the last sound of the palace. The patrolling footsteps of the night watch, carrying wooden staffs and a single brass gong. Their soft rhythm and occasional chime echo faintly across the compound. Signals that all is well, that the gates are closed, that the world has shrunk to the size of a single moonlit courtyard. You pull the quilt up to your shoulders, close your eyes, and let the sounds of the night fold around you like a second skin. You wake before the first bell. Or maybe you never quite slept at all, just drifted in and out of soft dreams woven with bits of yesterday. The warm breath of steam from the soup bowl, the rustle of silks in the corridor, the glance from the girl who gave you her leftover chestnut jelly without a word. These fragments cling to the edge of sleep, like dew to a blade of grass. Outside your room, the sky hasn't yet turned gray, but already the palace stirs. A rooster cries from somewhere deep within the servants' quarters, and in response, a dozen sleepy rustlings echo like a ripple. Bodies rising, blankets folding, hairpins clinking back into place. You sit up, stretch your arms, and let your breath settle before stepping out onto the chilly stone floor. Today's weather will matter. Everything from your outer robe's color to the way your hair is coiled may be adjusted based on humidity. But for now, there's only the soft hush of early morning and the scent of rice steaming in the kitchens. You aren't due in your work chamber yet. Instead, this part of the morning is yours, or at least mostly yours. Some court ladies use this hour to tend small personal altars. Others stretch aching joints beneath persimmon trees in the back garden. You head to the water basin near the eastern wall, where the light comes earliest. The water is cold, sharp, clear, honest. You splash your face, and in that moment, you belong to no one but yourself. Mainstream historical fact. Morning ablutions in the Joseon court were more than hygiene. They were ritual. Cleansing the face and hands with fresh water symbolized purification of both body and mind before entering daily duties, especially for those in service to the royal family. As you dry your hands on a woven cloth, a low thrum begins to build behind you, the collective rhythm of morning prep. Someone is already sweeping the flagstones near the main hall. Another girl tiptoes past an armload of bedding, heading for the linen quarters. Voices rise softly in practice chants from the servants tasked with early incense lighting. You return to your quarters to dress properly. The layering begins again. First the soft white underrobe, then the stiffer geoggery in muted indigo, then the overskirt dyed with hints of saffron. Your hair is wrapped high and pinned with care, though not extravagance. This is still a work day. Quirky tidbit. Some court ladies believe that certain herbs, when burned in a small clay dish under their robes during dressing, would improve posture and memory throughout the day. Whether it worked or not is debatable, but a faint scent of burning ginseng was often the invisible badge of ambition. Your feet pack quietly down the hallway as you make your way to the administrative court. Today, your role is to assist one of the junior scribes compiling inventory ledgers. It's not glamorous, but you prefer to other posts. You're indoors, seated and surrounded by scrolls that smell faintly of pine soot and old paper. It could be worse. You could be stuck in embroidery duty again. You enter the small chamber, bow to the scribe already seated at the far end, and take your place beside a worn wooden desk. A ledger is unrolled before you, covered in delicate brushstrokes marking grain shipments and garment orders. You dip your brush, the bristles whispering as you begin to trace the looping characters down the parchment. Hours pass this way, marked not by bells but by the steady progress of ink across scroll. The scribe coughs occasionally. A breeze nudges the edge of the window shutter. Outside, the sound of courtyard drills filters in, the thud of soldiers in training, the bark commands from a distant officer. Then a soft knock. A girl enters, carrying 2 lacquer trays with tea and rice cakes. She places one in front of you with a bowed head. A small kindness. This pause. You sip the tea, letting the warmth spread from your palms to your chest. The rice cake is filled with sweetened red bean, your favorite, though you'd never say it aloud. You glance at the scribe. She's watching you with a knowing smile. Long morning, she whispers, breaking protocol. You nod, hiding your grin in your tea bowl. Historians still argue whether the quiet intimacy shared among court women fostered solidarity or subtle rivalries. There's truth to both. For every secret exchange behind a paper screen, there's another hidden agenda tied with a ribbon and sweet words. Eventually, the scrolls are complete, signed, and bundled. You help carry them to the archivist's room, a dry, dim chamber lined with wall-to-wall cubbies, each scroll wrapped in cloth and marked with red ink stamp. The air smells like old cedar and ink powder. You love this smell. It makes the world feel held together. On your way back to your quarters, you pass a narrow side corridor. It's quieter here. No foot traffic, no glances. You pause for a breath. Just one. Through a slatted window, you glimpse the edge of the inner palace garden. Iris is blooming in soft lilac, a curved bridge painted vermilion, a pair of sparrows pecking beneath a stone lantern. You don't linger long, but the moment is yours. As the late afternoon sun begins to slant to the upper rafters, you change tasks once again. This time to assist in the preparation of ceremonial robes for an upcoming ancestral rite. It means handling brocade with golden threads and folding silks that rustle like water. It also means being extra careful. One wrong crease, and someone will scold you in front of 6 other girls. You hold your breath as you lift the sleeve of a crimson robe, adjusting it to catch the light just right. The embroidered dragon curls along the fabric, its eyes stitched in black pearl. You wonder how many hands pass this robe down before it reached you, and how many will come after. The day slips into its final act without fanfare. No gongs announce the change. No royal voice calls it out, but you feel it in the soft golden light pooling on the stone paths, the slightly sharper breeze slipping between the eaves, and the way your muscles, used to bowing and sitting and standing and folding, begin to hum a quiet ache. You stretch discreetly behind a screen, lifting your arms and rolling your shoulders as a few other girls do the same nearby. It's allowed unofficially. These silent acts of rebellion that don't really count as rebellion at all, just self-preservation. You're on your way to one last task before nightfall. Tonight, your assignment is a bit different. You'll assist with preparations at one of the ancestral pavilions, a quieter, more secluded wing of the palace used for rituals that call for fewer eyes, but no less reverence. You've only been there once before, and back then, your role was simply to sweep the floor and leave. This time, you'll be helping with the incense and flower arrangements. The pavilion is small, built mostly of dark wood with a curved tile roof that gleams like a beetle's back in the evening sun. It rests on a raised stone platform, its doors open, welcoming the spirits of the honored dead. Mainstream historical fact. In Joseon, Korea, ancestral worship wasn't just a duty, it was a state-mandated practice. Royal rituals followed strict Neo-Confucian protocols down to the minute, reinforcing both filial piety and political order. Even the placement of incense burners was regulated by centuries of tradition. Inside, an older woman with quiet authority guides you and another court lady through the setup. First, the incense stands, polished bronze, shaped like lotus blossoms. Then the flowers, white chrysanthemums, pink azaleas, and a single spray of plum blossoms, their scent sharp and faintly bitter. You light the incense with steady hands, using a smoldering coal pressed into a ceramic spoon. The smoke curls upward like a question left unanswered, weaving itself into the rafters where shadows gather. Quirky tidbit. Palace folklore claimed that if the incense smoke blew east during a ritual, the spirits were pleased. If it turned west, it meant they were annoyed or, worse, bored. Tonight, the smoke drifts straight upward. You take that as a good sign. You don't stay for the ritual itself. That's reserved for higher-ranking women and a royal scholar who arrives with 2 assistants in tow. Instead, you help tidy the entry mat and step quietly back out into the courtyard, the sky now sliding toward indigo. You're tired, but in a way that feels earned. On your way back, you pass the edge of the Queen's residence, where lanterns already bob along the walkway. Somewhere behind one of those doors, the Queen is having her hair unpinned, her day's notes read aloud, her feet soaked in warm water. You've never spoken to her, of course. You probably never will. But sometimes you wonder if she ever thinks about the other women beneath her roof, each with their own little stories tucked between chores. Historians still argue whether court ladies truly shape the tides of palace life from behind their paper screens, or their influence has been exaggerated in hindsight. You're not sure, but you know how many secrets pass quietly from one pair of lips to another in the spaces between duties. You reach your room just as the final bell sounds, a hollow, resonant chime that signals the closing of the outer gates. No one leaves the palace now. not without a written decree and a dozen signatures. Inside your room, the air is warm and faintly smoky, and your bones feel like they dissolve into floor. You change into your light night clothes, fold your robe over the cedar trunk, and sit for a moment, letting the quiet soak in. Then you begin your nightly ritual, not a state-sanctioned one, just yours. You light a tiny clay lamp and set it beside the folded corner of your mat. From a pouch beneath your bedding, you pull a square of paper and a stub of ink brush. No one taught you to write your thoughts, but you've been doing it anyway. Just a line or two here and there whenever something sticks to your ribs. Tonight you write, "The incense smoke rose straight. I'm taking it as a win." You fold the paper in half, then in half again, and tuck it under the reed mat. One day, someone might find these scraps and think they were nothing. But you know better. Outside the palace eyes. Not loudly, just enough to remind you that it's still there. It's layers of stone and silk and history breathing alongside you. You lie down on your mat, head resting on the folded cloth pillow, and stare at the dark rafters overhead. Somewhere, a bell rings once. Another hour passed. The night deepens. You close your eyes. Word count. 1,160. Wind down, approximate 300 words. And now, the story sleep? 2. The palace quiets even further, retreating into itself like a cat curling its tail. No more footsteps. No more bells. Just a rhythmic hush of wind brushing against rice paper walls, and the soft creak of old wood shifting in its sleep. You lie there, nestled in centuries of silence, letting the warmth of the mat seep into your back. The rituals are done. The robes are folded. The flowers have all been placed just so. Even the ink on your hands has faded. Somewhere, maybe, the queen dreams of lilies in her youth. A kitchen girl dreams of stealing another honey rice cake. And you, well, you're not dreaming just yet. You're floating, weightless, anchored only by the softness of your breath and the way the shadows stretch gently along the floor like silk ribbons. Breathe in. Let your shoulders soften. Let the palace fade. Because all of it will still be there tomorrow. The tiled rooftops, the embroidered sleeves, the careful hush of daily reverence. But tonight belongs to you. So drift. Let go of the brush, the scrolls, the needle, the incense. Let the stories wrap around you, soft and warm as a borrowed robe. And sleep. And now, the stories sleep, too. The palace quiets even further, retreating into itself like a cat curling its tail. No more footsteps. No more bells. Just a rhythmic hush of wind brushing against rice paper walls and the soft creak of old wood shifting in its sleep. You lie there, nestled in centuries of silence, letting the warmth of the mat seep into your back. The rituals are done. The robes are folded. The flowers have all been placed just so. Even the ink on your hands has faded. Somewhere, maybe, the queen dreams of lilies in her youth. A kitchen girl dreams of stealing another honey rice cake. And you, well, you're not dreaming just yet. You're floating, weightless, anchored only by the softness of your breath and the way the shadows stretch gently along the floor like silk ribbons. Breathe in. Let your shoulders soften. Let the palace fade. Because all of it will still be there tomorrow. The tiled rooftops, the embroidered sleeves, the careful hush of daily reverence. But tonight belongs to you. So drift. Let go of the brush, the scrolls, the needle, the incense. Let the stories wrap around you, soft and warm as a borrowed robe. And sleep.